Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout for you that I made for the July Stretch the Sketch Challenge. Today I'm going to be shrinking the sketch. You could see the sketch we're using off to the left. I've been looking through my albums lately and I found that the very first time that I participated in Stretch the Sketch, I made an 8.5 by 11 inch layout, and I like the idea of having different sized pages in my albums, but I didn't have a layout to go on the other side of that page protector. So I thought I would take this opportunity to make another layout that was 8.5 by 11 inches. The papers and the embellishments that I'm using are from an older My Creative Scrapbook kit. I had used up a lot of the kit, but there were still a few papers and some scraps and quite a few embellishments left over. So I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to use up a little bit more of that kit. For the background, I used the B side of a piece of paper that was in the kit, and I cut it down to 8.5 by 11 inches. I used a scrap of paper that is the one that is all the way in the back, that off-white paper with the blue on it. On top of that, there's a piece of paper that has some very light stripes on it. That was the backing to one of the embellishment packs. And then you saw me cut the little daisies, I think they are. You saw me cut that paper to size, and that's right behind the photo. And the papers and embellishments seem to be from a 49 and Market collection called Serendipity. And when I say seem to be, sometimes there are some papers mixed into the kit that are different from different collections or different brands, and I've already cut away the branding strips on the scraps. So I believe that the majority of the papers are from that collection. It's a beautiful collection with lots of purples in it. So I was thinking that it would look nice to have a little bit of texture to the papers, so I'm just taking my scissors and I'm distressing the edges. I like the way with the scissors, sometimes you get like a little cut or a little something really irregular in the edges. So that's why I prefer using the scissors over a distressing tool. I like when there's an irregular look to the distressing. Now you can see that I am stacking these papers on top of each other, inking the edges and attaching them to each other. Because the background color is so dark and it's so different from the other colors, I didn't want the background paper to be the only place on the layout where that color was present. So I thought that it would be a good idea to mat the photo on that color. Also, because it's dark, it draws attention to the photo. So I just trimmed the photo a tiny little bit so that it would fit on that strip of paper that I had. And now I'm just using some fun foam to pop up the photo. Attaching some adhesive to the back. Sometimes it can be a little hard to roll that ATG gun over foam, but it worked just fine. And then this was a piece that was fussy cut out of one of the pattern papers. The rest of the pattern paper was used on some other project, but I thought that this would fit nicely on the right where there's that circular element on the sketch. I inked the edges of most of the elements that I put on the page. I mainly use Dusty Concord, but I also use Seedless Preserves and Faded Jeans Distress Oxides. So now I'm attaching that whole unit down to the page. And you could see in the sketch that there are a couple of elements that I didn't include at all in my layout since I have shrunk the sketch and it's only 8.5 inches wide. I couldn't put all of those elements, like those two smaller photos off to the left, but I think you could still see the sketch in the layout. So I continue to work on the embellishments, moving them around the page, inking the edges, just trying to decide what I think looks best. So the last few days, I've been taking my layouts and putting them into the albums that they belong in. And I keep saying I'm going to do this, but this project really reminded me how important it is to put the date on every single layout. I always think, oh, I took so many pictures of this event, I'm going to remember the date, and I don't remember it. And I had to spend a lot of time going through albums to figure out where each layout should go. So I have a renewed commitment to dating every single one of my layouts, whether it's on the front or it's on the back. I always say I'm going to do that, and then I do it a little bit, and then I forget. But this process has really reminded me that that is so important to do immediately. So I did remember to not only put the date on the back, but my daughters each get their own album. So sometimes I scrapbook the same photo, but I scrapbook one for my daughter Danielle and one for Julia. So I'm also writing the name of my child that I'm scrapbooking for on the back, and hopefully that'll help me to organize things better and faster. But at least I did it on this layout, so it was a good start. So you could see that I inked the edges of the entire layout. I just wanted that white edge to go away. I didn't like the way that looked. And now I'm going in and I'm really roughing up those layers. I felt like that would make the layout a little bit more interesting if there was more distressing. This branding strip, I believe it is, this was in the kit. So I thought this would make a nice little anchor on the bottom. So I ink the edges and I attach that down. And then I trim off the excess on either side, and then I add a little bit more ink to either side. There were a bunch of these gears in the kit, and so I thought that this would add a different element. I have all flowers, so I thought that adding something a little bit different would make the layout more interesting. So I cut that little gear in half, put some on the right and some on the left. Now I'm adding a few little creatures to the background. I'm adding a grasshopper on the bottom, and I attach him down before I lose track of him. And I'm also going to be attaching down a dragonfly. So I ink the edges of the dragonfly and the butterfly as well. And then before I attach those down, I was noticing that these white flowers are kind of blending in with the whitish background behind it. So I put some more ink on the edge just so that there'll be some contrast between the flowers and the background. And now I'm going to attach the butterfly. I pop up just the wings on some foam, and then I put some adhesive down the center and on the foam, and then I am able to push the center down, and that makes the wings pop up a little bit. And in general, I love adding dimension to layouts, especially when it's something that's supposed to be flying on your layout. So I wanted to add some dimension to this dragonfly, so I put some foam on the back of it. It also came with an extra set of wings, and I think that's so that you can create more dimension by popping up the wings on top of the larger piece. And once I popped up the whole piece, though, I found that because the foam was cut so thin, it was a little wobbly. So I decided that I was just going to attach those wings directly to the dragonfly without using additional foam, and it's still dimensional, so I attached that down to the page. Now I wanted to put something on the top. I kind of felt like the top looked bare, so I punched this strip out of some pattern paper, and it looks a little bare to me. I'm going to add something to it in a little bit. But first I thought I would attach down some of the elements that I know that I'm happy with. So I attached down the gear. And then I decided that I wanted to add this little flower bud on the right-hand side of the large purple flower. So I attached that down. And then I wanted to add some photo corners. So I thought I would try to use the rest of the strip that went along the bottom, but when I put the photo corner punched out of that brownish paper down on the photo, it just faded into the background. So then I used this green piece of paper instead. But I still wanted to use that piece of brown paper because I didn't want the strip on the bottom to be the only brown in the layout, so I ripped the edge and I tucked it into the layers. And now I'm inking the edges of the photo corners. And then once I was done with the photo corners, I went ahead and I inked the edges of a number of other die cuts that I thought that I would be including on the layout. So I just thought I would finish up all my inking. The photo that I'm using for this layout is a photo of both of my daughters, and this was taken back in 2016. We were going to go to Manhattan for the day, and then we ended up not doing that, so we decided to go to a little town called Nyack. It's a cute little town. They have a lot of little specialty shops and some nice places to eat lunch. So the kids decided that they wanted to eat lunch in this Thai restaurant that was pretty popular at the time. And I noticed that the photo had a few touches of red. There's a banner over their heads. My older daughter has a sweater that's a reddish color, and there's also a few other things in the background that are red. So I thought that I would include some of these red ladybugs in the layout, and I thought that that little touch of red just helped to tie the photo in with the rest of the layout. I didn't worry about matching the colors to the photo. Sometimes I feel like it helps the photo stand out when the colors are different, but I did want to tie in the photo with the background a little bit. So I added another piece of a branding strip on top because I just wasn't happy with the way that scallop looked. And I feel like that makes it look a little bit more finished. On one of the, I guess, kind of scraps of pattern paper that I had left, I found this image of leaves that I thought would look nice to the right of the photo. So I cut that out and I found a little place to put it, and I'm, of course, inking the edges first. Then I wanted to add my title. So the beginning of this didn't record, but I just took some Seedless Preserves ink and I put that on the top of this wood veneer piece. And then I put the Dusty Concord on the bottom, and you could see that I used the dauber. And then I also colored that little wood flower. And this isn't the most exciting title. It's called Today, but I couldn't think of anything really exciting to call it. So I just decided to go with something simple. I put the paper punch on top of it to help push it down a little bit. And in the meantime, I'm just going around with my Elmer's gel glue and I am attaching down anything that wasn't already attached down. And I'm just going to push on that title a little bit. It's going to stay down there, but I wanted to make sure that it was flat. And I don't have any other textures on the layout. Everything is paper. So I decided to add a pearl to the little flower next to the title. And then I'm adding slightly smaller pearls to all 4 of the photo corners. And that completes the layout. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. In the description box, you'll find links to all of the videos of all the ladies that are following along with this awesome challenge. I always love to see how everybody takes the same sketch and does something usually totally different with it. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.